Good afternoon, Mark Studd with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for Wednesday, the 22nd of August 2012. The forecast track of Isaac. A lot has to do with how much time it spends over land, as you well know. Tough questions to answer at this point in time. A weaker, less organized system would more likely take a southern track like the ECMWF model is depicting. A stronger, deeper system in the atmosphere would more likely to be following right along the forecast track, or maybe even to the right of it to some extent. Some models do bring it up east of Florida, and there are those that bring it to the west of Florida. An infrared satellite picture, you can see a pretty large system overall, but it's also kind of elongated, has an oval shape to it, still not round in nature, and it's not compact quite yet. When I see these areas of showers and thunderstorms and blobs, that shows me that the organization isn't quite there. In fact, the pressure was still 1,006 millibars as of the 2 p.m. Eastern Time intermediate advisory, so Isaac is still trying to organize itself. It does have plenty of heat content to work with in the Caribbean Sea, and a real quick refresher, what is heat content? Well, the ocean has to be 80 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, somewhere around there, but not just at the surface. If that warm water extends deep into the ocean, then you have what's called more ocean heat content. That 80-degree line can extend 100, 200, 300 feet or more into the ocean, and then when the hurricane or storm comes along, churns up that water, it's just churning up more warm water instead of churning up colder water as you go down in the ocean. And the higher heat content values in the Northwest Caribbean Sea are what are most concerning, because if Isaac were to come through on a southern track, it would run right over that very high heat content and could turn into a very powerful hurricane. As it stands, the official forecast track brings the center of circulation over some very tall mountains here of the Greater Antilles Islands of Cuba and Haiti, part of Hispaniola, the island, and those mountains extend up to 10,000 feet plus in some cases, and that can be very disruptive to the circulation. Beyond that, once it leaves Cuba, the circulation, it does have a lot of heat content to work with, but over a fairly short period, if the forecast track is spot on. And when is a 5-day forecast ever exactly accurate? They're getting better, but they're never dead on from 5 days out. That's just the nature of forecasting. And if we look at the Euro from last night, you can see what I'm talking about. Its 5-day position right here south of Cuba, and I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. 5-day position from last night's Euro south of Cuba. Hurricane Center's 5-day forecast is sitting right up here in Collier County, or just on the coast. Pretty good distance between the two, and that makes a huge difference in terms of what happens. If we look at today's GFS, this is from this morning's run. 5-day position of today's GFS, not quite on shore, so a little slower. Right here in the Straits of Florida. Here's the Florida Peninsula right here. Here's the north coast of Cuba. And Isaac right there between the two in the Florida Straits trying to intensify. At day 6, it's moving northwest. Probably about a heading of 338 degrees or so, 335 on a compass. And up very close to Tampa Bay in vicinity. Pretty strong system in the model. It does reach up to the 500 and 200 millibar level as well, meaning that the circulation does extend high into the atmosphere according to the GFS, and that's why it's sensing that it would feel this little bit of a weakness in the ridge out here and turn more northerly, whereas the Euro has a shallower, weaker system moving along more in the low-level flow towards this position, eventually getting into the Gulf of Mexico. Finally, at day 7 on the GFS, a landfall or staying on shore, whichever way you want to look at it, up into the northeast part of the Gulf, up in the Big Bend area of Florida. Now the Euro at day 6, whereas the GFS has it up here near Tampa, the Euro has it down here in the Gulf of Mexico, Yucatan Channel area. That's quite a distance there between the two, a pretty big disparity between those two models. Day 7's Euro opens up the possibility of a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, whereas the GFS is way up here in the northeast part, up into Florida even. So huge difference there, not only in distance, but in the final outcome. If you split the two, and you just take an average of them, then maybe it runs over the length of the islands for the most part, and then it comes around and maybe hits the panhandle. I don't think it works that easy. Either the Euro is going to fall in line with the GFS and related models, or those models will start shifting west to align more with the Euro. I guess that's what it all has to come down to, and that's why this is so difficult to figure out this far out in time. So your best course of action, just make sure you got your hurricane plan ready. Talk to your family. Hey, what will we do if Isaac comes our way and knocks the power out for a few days, creates unpleasant conditions, or if it's a major hurricane and it's very disruptive for a week or more? What will you do? Now's the time to really start thinking about that. Maybe start getting a few extra bottles of water, and make sure you got some gas cans in case you need those, and just start thinking about what you're going to do. But don't panic. Don't let this ruin your everyday operations and everything you do and stress you out. No need to do that if you just take it calm and prepare and use common sense. This is when you start thinking about what you might do if Isaac comes your way. It's a big storm, and it's going to affect a lot of people, and how much so still remains to be seen. And that's what we're here to do, is to try to break it down and understand what's going on. And of course, you have a great tool with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD apps, Hurricane Express as well, to keep you up to date with the very latest on Tropical Storm Isaac. Again, I am Mark Sudduth, my website, hurricanetrack.com. And if we get a landfall out of Isaac, we hope you download our app, Hurricane Track. It's got some fantastic landfall tools, including live weather data from our instrumented wind towers, live webcam images that are updated, plus video blogs that we'll be putting out in the field multiple times a day. We'll put a couple of them into Hurricane and Hurricane HD, but Hurricane Track is a landfall-centric app right now, and I think you'll find it very useful if Isaac hits land, and we hope you check that out in the App Store. Just search for Hurricane Track. As always, a pleasure to provide these videos to Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and I'll be back here to do that again tomorrow.